What's up, guys? This is Ray, welcome to Asian Films, and we're here to talk about the 2015 Japanese movie Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen, directed by Kitano Takeshi, who many of us know as Beat Takeshi. And playing the titular role of Ryuzo is Fuji Tatsuya. And admittedly, when this movie first came out in 2015, I actually missed its theatrical run, so I had to wait until its DVD release before I could watch it. And I think it got a good amount of buzz when it first came out. I mean, after all, it's directed by Kitano, who is one of the big names in Japanese entertainment. Seriously, if you haven't seen any Beat Takeshi movies, I think they have a personality on their own, and I feel like a lot of that is reflected in this movie. Simply put, this is kind of a throwback to old school Yakuza movies, but in a very kind of modern take or twist, if you will. And this main story, it's about this retired Yakuza by the name of Ryuzo, as the title of the movie would hint at. And he's a grandfather. He has a son who has his own family, and so his glory days are way behind him. But he still kind of relives his glory days in his mind, to the point where he scares the neighboring kids and all, and even embarrasses his son. But one day he becomes a victim of what's called, I'm not sure what the English name would be, but it's like fraud. It's called ore sagi, where basically there is this guy, they target elderly, and they call pretending to be the son of that person, like, hey dad, it's me. And then they wait until the dad reveals the name, like, yeah, it's me. I'm in trouble. I'm in deep shit. I need some money. I need to pay back my company this amount of money. And then they basically swindle these kind of unsuspecting elderly folks into handing over some money. But Ryuzo is almost a victim of fraud. He gets kind of saved at the last minute by one of his buddies. And so, afterwards, they're at this noodle house. They're kind of saying, we should gather up the old crew. And then, they come, as Ryuzo and his old crew gather up again, they encounter multiple times with the same group that is responsible for committing fraud against Ryuzo. And so Ryuzo and his bunch, they form a new family, and they decide to take upon themselves to defend their turf against these guys who are scamming everyone left and right. And from the start that this movie, the type of comedy that this movie is going to rely on is the old versus the young, and the kind of results that come with that kind of clash, that kind of conflict. And in this case, they kind of spin it around a little bit to make it a gangster tale, to make it an old school Gokudo kind of story, the old gangster Yakuza movies. In this movie's case, the Yakuza are elderly, they're retired, they're in hospitals or retirement homes, they can barely walk, they barely have motor functions. So these are just grumpy old men who are trying, who are fed up with the new generation. Like, there's a lot of things that these youngins don't really know. And, they want to relive their glory days, as I mentioned earlier. And then they're facing off against a new type of gangster, if you will. They pose as a legitimate business, but in actuality, they're involved in many types of money getting schemes. Like, obviously there's the phone fraud. There's even just fake debt collecting. There's a whole bunch of different industries, if you will, that this new type of gangsters are involved in, and you get that clash that comes with it. And some more positives, like I think this movie is hilarious as all hell. I think the comedy here, it's more about laughing at elderly people, as they're trying to go about and do things as they used to do, but they obviously can't, and just a kind of awkwardness, and almost like just cute results that come out. It's cute in the sense, like, I don't know how to describe it. Just like when old dudes just try to do something, and then they end up looking really awkward. And there's a kind of cuteness of that comes out of it. It's kind of weird to say. It's awkward for me to say, but I don't know. I felt like whenever they try to do, there's one guy who, in his heyday, he was a gunslinger. But then he tries to twirl his gun and he can barely aim. He can barely hold it up. He's always shaking. There's a guy who was once known as an ace with his cane sword, but he can barely handle his sword. All the sorts of funny things that come out of what you can expect of old men trying to act young. And I also dig the characters. It's weird because the main 8 characters, they're all old dudes, but there's some kind of charm with the way all the characters are portrayed on screen. Granted, of course, as what you can expect with an ensemble cast of sorts, there are some characters that get put off in the back burner or put off in the background, and the spotlight is shown on more of a selected few as opposed to the whole group. But I think when they work together, when they're together all on screen, when they're all on screen together, there's a lot of charm in the way the characters move around, the way the characters talk and bicker with each other, and to all the decisions that these characters make. But I think the one thing that I dig about the way this movie makes me laugh, it's kind of a black comedy, if you will, because I mentioned that these are a bunch of old dudes, but when you think about these characters, they're kind of like, they're not good characters at all. These are like former yakuza. A lot of them have murder and assault charges to their belt, even jail time. These guys have done some serious shit in their past. You get glimpses of every single character's past through the use of like black and white flashbacks. It makes it look like an old-fashioned type of Goku the movie. That's a pretty cool aesthetic about it. But you think about the way these characters are in the current time, and they seem like harmless old dudes who, the kind of dudes that would tell tall tales, or at least tales that we would interpret as tall tales. But you take a look at their backstories. These are not good guys at all. It's kind of like these are protagonists that are kind of in between being a hero and being a villain if you just take a look at their whole entire background completely. But this movie takes that kind of archetype, and makes you cheer for them nonetheless. Because here they are facing off against modern gangsters, guys who are scammers, guys who commit fraud. And this movie makes you take a look at these two types of evils. And I guess because it's from the story is told from the point of view of the yakuza, you get behind the yakuza, by default. But I think the way the story is told, it's natural to come to like the yakuza a lot more. But when you look at the whole entire story, these are two groups of bad dudes all together, and I think because of that, it dives into a lot of moral gray areas when it comes to storytelling. And that's something I enjoy with this comedy, because you laugh at things, but you're not, from a moral standpoint, you probably shouldn't be laughing, or you probably should be worried that something is wrong, but you just can't help but laugh. So the comedy in this movie relies a lot on that kind of black comedy, as well as the kind of gags you can expect from a old generation interacting with the new. And as far as the negatives are concerned with Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen, the very ending, the ending kind of just ended. It was just, leading up to it, like the final confrontation was a blast. I had a really good time with it, like from the moment the final confrontation started. It was a lot of fun, but then it just kind of ends and cuts off, and I thought it was a missed opportunity to end on a bigger, kind of more entertaining note. Overall, what do I have to say about Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen? This movie I think has a mediocre score on IMDb, but honestly, I love this movie, and the reason why is because I love the black humor that this movie relies on, the kind of gags, the kind of old man gags. I get it. Me being of a certain age, I absolutely love the kind of humor. That's not necessarily bad dad jokes, but it's the kind of gags you can kind of expect. Like I said, I keep saying, from an older generation interacting with the new generation, or just misunderstanding the newer generation. And on top of that, the way these gags and jokes are delivered, they're not, delivered with a high energy of sorts, just because, these are old men who can barely move. A lot of the humor is delivered in a kind of not flat or deadpan way per source, but kind of like, low energy, but at the same time, the way the lines were delivered, I thought it was absolutely funny. And just the interactions are hilarious, not only with the gangsters and the young folk, but also just the gangsters with the scammers. And you get a lot of like manzai back and forth duo, like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about this. What the hell is that? You get a lot of really excellent back and forth comedy that I can't help but just smile. Obviously, I love this movie. I think if you like Kitano movies, you probably enjoy this. It's not as violent as what you can expect from a typical Kitano movie, but it does have its own share of violence, own share of action sequences. Don't expect much, because these are just, like I keep saying, these are old men trying to fight and trying to move around. You can expect what you can from that description. But yes, I do recommend to give it a watch. You know, if you have the chance, definitely check it out. And even Kitano himself has a small role as a police officer that pops in and out of the story a few times. And just seeing him in this type of movie, you know, yeah, I welcome it. I absolutely welcome it. But yes, those are my thoughts on Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen. What did you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And if you really did my content, please know you can support Asian Films via Patreon from as little as $1. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Hope to catch you all again in the next video. Take it easy.